ink that is like consistent with the 15th century as well. Like that's he probably did not forge it, but some people think he did. This is another like ridiculous thing. Some people think this was a prank on Kircher. Like, apparently, Andreas Mueller had sent Kircher unintelligible text with a note explaining it had come from Egypt and asked Kircher to translate it, which, like, Kircher apparently reported that he did solve it. So, like, some people are thinking this was also sent to him as, like, another unintelligible text to make Kircher look foolish for saying he's solved it. But, like, again, that's pretty elaborate as a
That's so
prank.
mean.
Right. I mean, it's one thing to send like a piece, but to send a whole manuscript of this fake stuff just to have him say he did solve it, like I don't. And he never did say he solved it, so like that's pretty elaborate for a prank. Um, so another theory is that Raphael Nishovsky, which was the friend of Marcy, who was the reputed source of like the Bacon authorship idea, like he himself was a cryptographer and apparently invented a cipher which he claimed was uncrackable, which I guess he said this in like 1618. So like this led to speculation that maybe he produced the manuscript himself as like a practical demonstration of this cipher that was uncrackable.
And then said it was bacon
Right.
so that people would actually want to try to solve, like, people would actually care.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. But again, that does seem pretty elaborate with these like drawings and stuff. Like if it was just text, like okay. But with all the like almost every single page has drawings on it, like I don't know, that's a lot to just prove that his cipher's uncrackable. Another person proposed is the 15th century Italian architect Antonio Averlino, which like that would be consistent with the radiocarbon dating since he's in the 15th century, but like I'm not really quite sure why he's proposed as an author. Like someone wrote a book in 2006 and said maybe he was the author, but I couldn't read that book, so I'm not sure their reasoning. And he's an architect, so it doesn't really make sense either to me. Um but this one kind of I like a little bit more. But it's another theory is that it was written by Leonardo da Vinci,
We
which
should do a whole episode on him.
yeah, we should. But I guess he was alive in the 15th century, but not the early 15th century, so like still the radiocarbon dating would make it like this probably not true. But like apparently his script in his like notebooks is similar to that in the manuscript. And like Da Vinci was very secretive and many of his notebooks were written either using like mirror image writing or he used anagrams often to conceal the names of his friends. So like that could be one explanation on why it's so hard to decipher if he just wanted to keep it a secret. And I guess Edith Sherwood, who's a retired have a he's a ugh, I don't know what I'm saying. Retired PhD in chemistry, I guess. But she has a lot of articles online, which I'll link also her website. But like one of them goes in depth with Da Vinci being the author and like showing different pen strokes in the manuscript and like how it could have been written by like a left-handed person based on the pressure of the pen strokes, which Da Vinci was a left-handed person, I guess. But he kind of like tried to hide that because that was like the devil's work back then.
And he was into medicine too.
Right. Yeah. Like, it wouldn't be out of. The only problem is that he wasn't alive in the early 15th century.
But that old paper, 50-year-old paper,
Right.
is a
That's
lot less hard to get.
right. That's more reasonable than Voynich making it in the 1912.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like a lot on her site, so like people could go check it out if you want to like look at it more. But there's like this one picture of like his left-hand handwriting is A and the Voynich manuscript is B in this picture. So
It does.
yeah,
It does.
right. It looks like really similar, I think. Although people can read his notebooks, right? Like people have deciphered
Yeah, I
those.
was just thinking that.
Right. So it doesn't make sense why it's still like indecipherable, but
Well, maybe all the words are backwards. Because didn't you say it's
yeah.
written left to right? Right to
Yes.
left? Left to right?
Left to right.
Yeah, okay. Because he used
Yeah.
mirror writing, so maybe it's that too. I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm not smart and I'm not smarter than these people who are doing this for a living, but
Right. I
um
feel I kind of want to like go look at it and do they make this my life's
we have
work, but
we have no background in
I
languages or
know.
ciphers, but
Right.
but sometimes it takes a set of fresh eyes who knows nothing.
That's true. Yeah, and one of the theories that was in her website was that, like, I mean, obviously left-handed, you're gonna smear your ink unless you like write differently. So like he
Uh-huh.
often wrote like from top to bottom still. Like he would just turn the page and still write like top to bottom, but like write it where you could read it then when it's turned the right way. Like
Oh.
somehow he
Oh
could
my
move,
god.
yeah. And like I don't know, she said something about like some of the characters in the Voynich manuscript kind of looks like that based on the like pressure that it could have been written like in that way. So,
Yeah, I'm noticing some of the characters are darker than others.
right. Yeah, so there's like definitely some different pressure and stuff. I don't know. I mean, there's whole like handwriting analyses and stuff to do that. But yeah, I wish I like took Latin and learned and stuff so I could see and I don't know. But those are the ideas of who authored it, which I kind of like the Da Vinci theory the best, but who knows? But there are a few theories on the language used in the manuscript. So, like, one is it's a scientific diary written in shorthand, which that it's plausible too, I guess. So the idea is that it was Latin, but in an abbreviated form, which would not have been considered acceptable to other scholars. So, like, maybe it was just
I
personal notes.
mean, yeah.
Right,
Because,
like,
like, even, like, like court topography,
right.
you can't read that unless you know.
Right, exactly. So if it was some kind of shorthand, and that's another reason it can't be deciphered because we don't know like the code of the shorthand. Like I put a picture of shorthand, like that's English, but it does just kind of look like nothing unless you can read it. Like, So maybe that's why we
How
can
is that
never.
easier than writing letters?
Well, it's
How would you
faster.
even. How could you even read that?
I don't know. My aunt knows shorthand. She learned it
Maybe
in
I want to learn
school.
shorthand.
Right. Yeah, I mean, imagine if you hold a whole diary in shorthand and like, 200 years from now it's found by scholars, they're never going to be able to decipher it. And that
Oh
could
my
be this. I
god.
mean, that could be why we can't figure this out. Another idea is that it's a form of steganography.
That's
Isn't
what
that
I
the,
meant.
yeah.
Not
That's what I thought you meant. But it's like,
topography is a fucking elevation map. Oh my god.
no, that's
Sometimes I
topography.
say things so confidently and I don't know what the fuck I'm saying at all.
Topography is elevation. Didn't you say what'd you say?
I said topography.
Oh, you said topography. I thought you started with an S for some reason.
No.
Okay. Well, steganography, which is where the text is. Well, this is where, because that's not the court stuff, is it still?
I don't know. That's
Yeah,
stenography.
stenography. This is steganography. Okay, so this is where the text is mostly meaningless, but it contains meaningful information hidden inside the text. So, like, for instance, you would use the second letter of every word, or like, you'd use the number of letters in each line to, like, get a code. And, like, it could also be related to the length or shape of certain pen strokes. So,
Oh
like,
my.
if it was, like, made with that kind of thing, like, you're never gonna know the code to do it then. Because that's like crazy. But yeah, there's still definitely people who think it's entirely a hoax and there's no meaningful information hidden within it at all, which is why it can't be deciphered. So that is like an option still. This idea I kind of like too. Like, it's the idea that it was like a channeling. So, like, the author felt compelled to write like a large amount of text in a manner which resembles like a stream of consciousness. Like, like, kind of like how psychics channel, I guess.
Yeah, or it's like speaking in tongues but
Right,
words.
right. Yeah. So, that's definitely an option. But like this does often take place more in an invented language, like when it's spoken in tongues, for instance, like you would speak it, obviously. Like it's kind of rare for it to be written in tongues, I guess, if that's a option, but like that's kind of the idea that it is just kind of like meaningless like stream of conscious that only the author would know, or maybe not even know. Like when you get back out of it, maybe it's not even decipherable
Oh,
to the
that's
author.
scary.
Right. And then that could be aliens. Aliens gave the message, and they didn't give us
Yeah,
the code to break it.
channeled through their brains.
Oh, right. And that's like another reason it could be explained why it's like written where there were like no stops from like having to check things or whatever. Because it was just a stream of conscious, like gibberish, I guess, still. But then why draw these intricate drawings? Like, that's what I don't get. Like, I feel like there kind of is a meaning somehow.
Maybe it was a dream.
Oh, maybe.
Or like an alien download to your brain.
Right. I mean, some of the charts and stuff, though, it looks like there is, like, useful information somehow.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Yeah, like, many people still think, though, that it's a natural or constructed language because of, like, all the statistical analyses that have been conducted. And, like, that it shows that it kind of has a pattern like a language would. Because, again, like, if it was stream of consciousness, it would maybe not follow a normal pattern either of like language.
Right.
But until any of it can be deciphered, then
What if the person was dyslexic?
it's like switched. Oh, that would make it even more impossible to.
What if someone who's dyslexic looked at it and said, "Oh my god, I can read it"?
Yeah, but like you'd have to know the original language still or whatever, the code still.
Yeah.
But that could explain, like I said, some of the words like seemed like they were the same word, but like one letter switched. So that could be
Maybe
dyslexia.
someone's just bad at spelling.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the more I've like looked into it, the more I think it's never going to be deciphered because it could just be like so many different techniques to and stuff and like with Latin being added with the characters and stuff, like who knows if it was Latin or Hebrew or Greek or I don't
I
know.
bet someday they'll make an algorithm.
They've tried to use AI and it's been unsuccessful so far.
AI's just a baby.
That's true. Yeah, maybe it'll be deciphered one day, but I don't know. But speaking of that, we can get into the decipherment attempts, which some of these do say they actually deciphered it, but like those are mostly debunked now that they didn't actually. Like, because some people, you could probably make it say whatever you want because no one knows
Right.
what it actually says. So, the first is William Romaine Newbold. So he made an attempt in 1921. So his hypothesis was that the text was meaningless, but each letter contained a series of tiny markings only discernible under magnification, which is like a wild theory. But he said these markings were based on ancient Greek shorthand, and he claimed to have deciphered many paragraphs of text, which proved Roger Bacon authored it. So we're back to Bacon. And uh, however, John Manley of the University of Chicago pointed out serious flaws in his hypothesis, namely that each shorthand character was assumed to have multiple interpretations.